Now, I know that you've been wanting to talk about this for some time now.
Yeah.
And it relates, I think you mentioned it in brief before, but we haven't really like gone into it. And it's this idea of South Asian people being...
It was a medical phenomena.
And it's really interesting as well, like evolution and that sort of thing.
I'm going to try and get the stats up.
Yeah, so while you're doing that, for the listeners out there, this idea is that South Asian people, so like our generation of South Asian people especially, are genetically predisposed to actually put on more weight and other various health conditions, which include storing more fat, etc.
6 times likely, sorry to interrupt you, but while you're on that, we are 6 times more likely to develop type 2 diabetes than Europeans.
And they're saying that they think the reason for this, rather than just saying, oh, it's genetics, they're saying that they think like a contributor towards this at least is the fact that a lot of South Asian people, if you go back in time, were subject to famine as a result of colonialism.
It's not even that much back in time. It's literally like our grandparents' generation.
I mean, that's the thing that I don't get, because I thought that like genetically predisposed stuff, I thought that because if you think about like evolution and that, like that's like that took ages, right? So how come with something like this it's such like a quick turnaround? You know what I mean? Like in terms of like, if like like you're saying, it's not that far in the history, is it? It's like a few generations.
That's the end of that history, but that entire history spans like hundreds of years. It does span.
Yeah,
it's
true.
Literally like 400 years before. So it wouldn't have just been from the last famine. It would have been from the first famine, I guess, which was hundreds of years ago. But and also like it's funny like when this came out, because there was one time when I got quite inebriated. And
interested. Ramadan, what are you talking about?
And I went on this whole massive rant about how like colonial violence can still be read on like my body, right? And I had a conversation with my cousin about it, and then another time one of my other cousins recently went to the doctor, and the doctor said to her that her body stores fat as though she's stuck on a desert island. That is to say,
it's mad, like to
as
think
if to say that she's in like perpetual threat of starvation, basically. Like that is what they said to her. So like when you hear things like this, it totally makes sense. Like it really, really does make sense. And it's not just like this. The overweight, the obesity, the diabetes, that stuff is one thing. But then there's, you know, like South Asian women, for example, have like the highest rates of anemia.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
One of the highest rates of vitamin D deficiencies. Like those two are really, really common in like South Asian women. And if you deep it, it's kind of like we're not supposed to be here.
Yeah, I was gonna say like, why have we got vitamin D deficiency when?
Because we don't get no sunlight. Oh no, I meant women here.
Oh, okay, got you, yeah.
Because we don't get no sunlight. We literally don't get no sunlight. Our bodies were not meant to be in this climate. I say it all the time. If look at me, I'm not supposed to be this pale. I'm not supposed to look like this. This is me in the colonizers' land. But I just think it's crazy. So like this post here, if you go on like AJ Plus, you'll find the post, and it's really interesting. And then it's the doctor who like theorized this, speaking about it. But he says the Indian subcontinent faces many as 31 serious famines under British rule, and tens of millions of people like during the course of those famines have starved. So like it totally does make sense. Like it's like bodily trauma, right? Like and that's what you call like generational trauma as well. It's like your body has literally inherited this adaptation, which is famine, like to adapt to famine. It's insane. Like there's not really much to say about it, but I just wanted to make it known.
No, and
like it's crazy, like colonial violence. And that's why when people talk about things like, oh well, racism doesn't exist anymore because empire has ended, but like the actual continuities of empire are still very much here and are still very much affecting people. Like if you think about me as an individual in the UK, someone might look at me as like a self-contained individual and be like, well, how has empire affected her in any way whatsoever?
Yeah, when you were born at the end of the 1990s,
you know
like,
what I mean?
Oh, you're born in the UK, blah blah blah, like, but it is still so much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like it is crazy, very very insane.
Yeah, well, really, I mean, obviously it's sad, but it's quite interesting.
It's fascinating,
yeah,
the way that the body can the trauma can be read on the body, like, right, like, and it's also like interesting to think about how these political structures translate into like have a very visceral translation, right? How they translate into like medicine, how something that was essentially a political structure, the empire, actually can be then translated into a medical phenomena. And it just goes to show like how all-encompassing something like empire and colonial sorry guys, I haven't eaten, I'm fasting, my brain's a bit. Colonialism is like, it really really does seep into like literally every facet of life.
Definitely.
There we go.
But yeah, definitely something to look more into outside of this.
I also like, I'm really keen to see how this research unfolds, because it's kind of like breaking ground at the minute, this research.
Yeah, because I think you said it first a few months ago, and then obviously
I'd read a little bit about it. It was like China, I think someone in China had done a study on it, and then like the over the past few months I've been hearing a little bit more about it and here and there. But I feel like if we can like the more this they unpack this theory, like I feel like it will help a lot of South Asians understand themselves, understand their bodies, not just in terms of like just the obesity and the diabetes thing, but just even acknowledging, scientifically proving the fact that colonial violence and trauma can still be read on the descendants of those who lived under empire and colonialism. I think that would change a lot of things. All of a sudden we'll then be looking at ourselves differently and actually being able to contextualize a lot of certain medical things that South Asian people face, you know?
Yeah, for sure.